Welcome to Beers and Biscuits, a dogcast for the rest of us. I'm Karen.
And I'm Nicole.
Grab a beverage, give your dog a biscuit, and enjoy the conversation.
So, Karen, what beverage do you have today?
Tonight, I am enjoying the Raspberry Jam Sesh by Sap House Meadery. It is a draft mead, and I gotta tell you, this is a 10 out of 10.
That sounds delish.
And what is the treat that you are recommending tonight, Nicole?
So, for our biscuit, I have Waggies by Maggie, and it's peanut butter bones, and it's made with Dogfish Head brewed beer grains from Dogfish Head Brewery.
Okay, but that actually sounds really good.
Peter loved them.
If Peter loves it, your dog will love it.
All right, well, we're going to jump right in. I'm really excited about learning more about Karen, the dog guardian, and delving into your story as a dog guardian and living and learning and loving CJ. Let's kick this off with a round of some fun questions for you, Karen. Are you ready?
I think so. I hope so.
Would you rather binge The Office or Parks and Rec?
Oh. Parks and Rec.
Nice, nice. All right, 80s or 90s music?
Ooh, 90s. Sorry.
Ice cream or frozen yogurt?
Oh, ice cream all day long.
Okay. If someone called you tomorrow and said, "You've won a vacation, all expenses paid," would you rather spend a week at the beach or a week at like a ski resort?
Ski resort.
Nice, me too. All right, and last one. If someone were to write a book about you and your life, what would it be called?
Oh, this is a good one. The girl that fell down the stairs. I'm really good at falling downstairs.
Awesome. Awesome. I actually am super at falling down and off things as well. So the misadventures and trips and falls of Karen Chapdelaine.
That sounds
Love
like
it.
a much more like beautiful. Here is this instead of a girl that falls down the stairs.
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
Those were
All
fun.
right. All right. So let's start off. Why don't you tell us CJ's origin story? Like, where did you get him? When? What made you choose him as your pup? Tell us all the deets.
So the idea of little baby CJ came to me from my husband. He had a German Shepherd growing up and he really wanted another one. And he approached me with it, and I initially said no because I came into this world a cat person. I did, and I wasn't sure about getting a dog, but we started looking around. We started researching breeders back home. So he was initially my husband's idea, and I did the research that I thought was good enough at the time. Um, Looking back, knowing what I know now, I would certainly ask more questions, do a little bit more digging. But we found a breeder that we liked here in New Hampshire, and we went and visited. When we went, there was only two male puppies left, and we knew we wanted a boy dog. So we met the two, and his brother was kind of, rough and tumble. If you pick him up, he didn't want anything to do with you. He wanted to just get back down and play. And when you picked CJ up, he just kind of melted into your arms. And I was like, all right, I'm 90% sold on this pup. And then we were outside at the time and it started to rain. And CJ then was the only pup in the entire litter to like go under shelter and get out of the rain. And I was like, he is so smart. He loves me. That's the one. So that's how we picked CJ.
Aw, so cute. So, I mean, I know it was a long time ago, but do you remember kind of some of the things that you researched and some of the things that you wanted to tick off certain boxes looking for him?
So I remember looking again, we knew we wanted a German Shepherd. We knew we wanted a male dog. And those were kind of the jumping off points. I then started deep diving and reading every book on German Shepherds I could get my hands on.
Right,
At the time, I didn't know to research or really look deeper into breeders. But I had a general understanding from what I could glean from the internet as far as where are the dogs kept? Are they kept in the home versus outside? Are the parents on site? That kind of stuff. So I did look for a breeder that, had the dogs in their home, the parents were on site, that kind of stuff.
right.
But I do wish I had known more.
So, what would you ask now, or what would you look for now, maybe that you didn't then?
So, knowing now what I wish I knew then, I would have looked for the breeder to be doing a little bit more with the pups.
Right,
I don't want to, not that I'm going to name names because I would not go back to this breeder, but I also don't want to assume that she knew to do all of these things that we know now. Back then, she may not have. But I would have liked to have seen, more exposure to novel everyday items like the hair dryer or the vacuum, that kind of stuff.
right.
Another one was that we were allowed to meet the mother, but if I'm remembering correctly, she didn't allow us to meet the father. And again, knowing now, that would kind of be a red flag.
Yeah, it's really hard to know what you don't know. And especially, he's older and, through the years and through your experience growing from a dog guardian into a dog trainer, like that even you get even more experience on things of what to ask for and things like that. So that makes sense that we grow in our knowledge, and as we do that, then we can ask better questions. So then my next question for you then is, tell me a little bit about his puppyhood, his adolescence. Like, how was he and how did you guys fare bringing a German shepherd puppy into your home?
I do think everybody who has a German Shepherd understands that clarification of German Shepherd puppy, not just a
Right.
puppy. So, so, so CJ was my first dog ever. So I don't have a lot to compare him to, except for the dogs that I've worked with now. But he, for the most part, was your typical puppy. But when you looked at him from the German Shepherd puppy, he was the exact opposite of everything I learned about. Everything I read about them was they're high energy, they're going to need hours of, exercise, and you're going to just go, go, go. And he was just a couch potato. And I remember I took him to the vet so frequently because I was like, there has to be something wrong with this dog because he is not like a German Shepherd. I took him to the vet so much. My vet was just like, Karen, stop bringing him. He's fine. So he's just a couch potato.
I actually had that same experience with Charlie, being that he is also part German Shepherd. There were so many times when he was a small puppy that I was like, he's just not normal. Like, I would take him to like puppy class and puppy play group, and he literally would just fall asleep in my arms. And I mean, it was good. We're still getting exposure and we're still, getting out in public and doing things, but he was just so chill and not at all what I had expected out of a puppy.
Yeah, it's you have these expectations for these puppies that come home, and then when they're not met, those expectations aren't met, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, it's like you're just kind of left confused. Like, is my puppy is is there something wrong? Is he defective?
So then how did that flow into his adolescence? Did you see any behavior change or did you notice anything as he was growing into his adolescent body?
Oh yes, yeah. So he started right around that typical time, 6 to 8 months old, somewhere in there. He started becoming a bit more reactive, just to dogs on the street, people, things like that. And at the time, it was pretty hit or miss. It was, he might bark at that person or that dog, he might not. And back 10 years ago, I was not walking with a treat bag because I didn't know. So his adolescence hit pretty hard. And I don't know that we have ever gotten out of it.
What prompted you into seeking training for him? Was it like a single incident, or did you just feel like his behavior changing over time was maybe more than you were prepared for? Like, what did that look like for you?
So we actually started him on in puppy training almost immediately when we brought him home. And he did fine in the puppy classes, and then we were taking him through the CGC process, which is the Canine Good Citizenship through AKC. And he was doing really well, and we had a lovely trainer at the time. Carol was her name, and she was really very helpful, but there wasn't anybody, at least to my knowledge, what I knew, to ask and look for. There wasn't anybody in our area at the time that was dealing with behavior modification that wasn't using more adverse methods. And on top of that, at the time, my husband was in the military, so we were getting ready to move. So it was kind of like this perfect storm of my perfect, sweet little innocent puppy who just wants to be with me all day now wants to eat anybody that walks by the house. Oh, but just kidding, now you're going to move. So it was a lot.
Right. That's a lot. That's a lot for even a dog that's stable dog that has a lot of resilience. That's a lot of, change moving in general can be a lot of change for even a resilient dog. Okay. So at the time, as a guardian, what did you know about the industry? Like what, if anything, were you specifically looking for a trainer other than, just not using aversive equipment?
To be perfectly honest, I really didn't know a lot about the industry. I had really no idea. I just knew that CJ was such a good dog, except when there was another dog around or a strange man. And I could not look into his big brown eyes and put a prong collar on him or a shock collar. I just knew in my bones that was not something I could do to him. But what as far as like finding something else, I didn't know what that was at the time.
Then that leads me to the next question of tell us a little bit about why you became a trainer and what you worked on with CJ over the years.
So I remember it quite vividly. We were driving across country, and I was reading a book. And if I remember correctly, it was The Other End of the Leash. And that is a absolutely phenomenal book. But at the time, with my understanding of the dog world and dog behavior, I remember it took me the entire drive across country. And there were multiple times I looked at Neil and was like, I know nothing. And then, even funny enough, this came up the other day. There was a Facebook memory that came up, and I posted about, I don't know anything about dog behavior, but I know this is what I want to do with my life. And when we got to California, where we were moving to at the time, I still knew I didn't know enough. So I started reaching out to local places.
Right.
And again, I remember this very, very vividly. I reached out to this one company and I said, I'm looking for somebody to help me with my dog, but they cannot use, prong collars, shock collars, choke chains, anything like that. And this company was like, oh, yeah, no, we don't use any of that. No, 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 would never. Let's meet up at this park. And like this was a big company. Like they showed up in their like with a van with their logo all over it and everything. And we get out and we're sitting in the park and we're chatting. And then they pull out like an OtterBox case and they're like, well, this is what we use. It was a shock collar.
Of course.
I was like, no, never mind. I'm all set. I'm just going to leave. And they're like, no, 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 hang on. Just let's put it on your hand so you can feel what it feels like. It doesn't hurt at all. And I was just like, no, I will not put that on my dog. I will not. And I felt so deceived and so angry as well that this company could lie to somebody, get them to a location with somebody who's honestly desperate at this time for help,
Right.
lie to them, and then try to get away with it. And the anger that filled me, I was like, I will never put a human in that position, and I am going to figure out how to help my dog on my own.
Yeah, I feel like that's a similar story to a lot of trainers. I mean, I've talked to quite a lot of people that, they just weren't comfortable with the options that they had, and so they kind of delved into learning and becoming a trainer on their own. What do you feel like is the biggest challenge that you have faced as a dog guardian of a reactive dog?
Well, I think it's kind of twofold for me because I mean there's two answers to this. The biggest challenge was letting go of the expectations I had for my dog. I had dreams of the quote unquote coffee house dog. I wanted to take CJ with me everywhere and go to farmers markets and all that stuff. So letting go of my expectations was the hardest. But then on the flip side, for the longest time, I struggled and I wouldn't talk about CJ because I was like, who would want a dog trainer who has a reactive dog?
Right.
There was a lot of shame in that for me. And it's surprisingly enough, what kind of snapped me out of it was my mom, who is, I don't think she would call herself an animal person. They're just not her thing. But I was home for the day with CJ and I didn't want to take him out for a walk because I was like, I don't want people to know. I'm trying to grow this business. I don't want them to know my dog's reactive. And I remember she said to me, she's like, listen, Karen, just step outside and listen. You could hear all these dogs barking. And she was like, if those dogs can be out there barking, CJ deserves a place out there barking too. I just remember being like, you know what? She's freaking right. If it was just the message of your dog deserves a place in this world too, that really hit home for me.
Right. It's so hard sometimes because we're so conditioned to feel like, and this goes for people too, to feel like a behavior issue or a behavior problem or a mental illness makes the dog unworthy of a place among everybody else that is not perfect. I went through that with my first dog, Hershey, who was very reactive to people and dogs. She was a 7-year-old Great Dane mix that had lived her first 7 years, basically caged up outside as a quote unquote guard dog. Never stepped foot in a house, never had interactions with people really, came into the shelter, was not doing well. Nobody could walk her, nobody could handle her. And, it was basically brought to me like, look, we're going to put this dog down. Do you want her? And at the time, I was like, not really. Not really. But she was a great dog, but by everyone else's standards, she was damaged. She was damaged goods. And to me, she was forgiving and gracious and became a wonderful, wonderful dog that was very good with people and very good with dogs. But had I gone into that or allowed that mindset of she's just damaged goods because she has this issue, I probably would have treated her differently. And so, yay for your mom, right? For making that so clear.
Well, and I think it's also just kind of funny because that was probably 6, maybe 7 years ago at this point, and I could probably guarantee she doesn't even remember that conversation. Um, but I think that just kind of goes to show the impact that some statements can make on people. And she's probably already forgotten about it,
Right.
but 7 years later, it's still I can remember exactly where I was standing. I can remember, it was summer. Like, I remember it because sometimes it just takes that little bit of positive reinforcement to help someone.
So, what do you think people most misunderstand about you as a dog guardian?
Who as a dog guardian, I think that this is a tough one because as far as like from the dog trainer side, I can answer that so quickly. But from the dog guardian side, I would have to say people probably just misunderstand. I don't know how to put this into words. Like, I feel like I get a lot of times, you should have more dogs. Why don't you have more dogs? That kind of stuff, or that, you're so good with dogs. And thank you. Thank you for saying that. But I don't think that the number of dogs somebody has can really equate to how good they are with dogs, if that makes sense.
Right. No, it makes perfect sense. So, have you ever encountered people again, putting your Karen, the dog guardian hat on, have you encountered people that approached your guardianship of CJ, the reactive dog, like you caused that, or it was something that you did or didn't do as to that's why he is reactive or that's why he's acting that way?
In the beginning, I certainly got a lot of that. It was, you didn't socialize him enough, or it's because you got him from a breeder, or, it was my fault. It was always my fault. And it wasn't until I knew better and I was also just sick of it. Initially, I would start kind of defending it and being like, nope, I did all the socialization. Nope, I did this. I would defend it, but now I don't even really engage in those conversations because people, in my experience at least, when they say things like that, they want to blame. And I think it, in some ways, and again, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think those questions and those assumptions come from people with reactive dogs, and they're just in the beginning of their journey and they're looking for a place to place blame. When it comes to reactive or aggressive dogs, for the most part, there's no one to blame.
Right. I mean, this could turn into a much bigger topic about nature, nurture, genetics, all of that stuff.
Oh, buckle up! I'm in. We'll chat about that for sure.
We definitely could do a whole episode on that for sure. But yeah, I mean, I think it lends, kind of lends to just the way we think about dogs in general, or most people. I mean, I feel like people that really truly understand dogs and understand them as sentient beings, kind of understand that sometimes that just is the dog. It's not necessarily a deficiency on the human's part. And that's hard. I think that's hard for a lot of people to understand that it could just be that's the hand the dog was dealt.
Absolutely. because I look back at it, and given my knowledge at the time, I did everything right. I did everything how the book told me to do it, how I knew what to do. Reflecting back on it with the knowledge that I have, yeah, I would have taken him out more. I had this dream of the coffee shop dog, but I did not know you had to take your dog to a coffee shop to get them used to the coffee shop if you wanted them to go to the coffee shop. So,
What? You mean they don't just come like that? You don't just order them up?
unfortunately, no. Unfortunately, no.
So, okay, so if you could go back then to those early days with CJ and to your earlier self, what one piece of advice would you give yourself?
Can I say two?
Sure.
My first one would be very silly, and it would be take more videos, not just photos. Take the videos. And then my second one would be to really listen to Carol, the trainer I had at the time. And she gave me a piece of advice that I have carried with me and told all of my clients. When CJ first started reacting, she told me, take a breath, Karen, remember to breathe. And if I could go back, I would tell myself, hear that, listen to it, and do it. Take a breath and remember to breathe. This is not going to last forever.
Love it. I love it.
Well, thank you so much for letting me chat about CJ, my absolute favorite topic in the world.
Yeah, I'm glad we got to dive in a little bit deeper. We all wear a lot of different hats. And so it was nice to get to, kind of see that other side and where you, Karen the trainer, came from, Karen the guardian.
Well, thank you so much. And I can't wait to dive into your story in future episode, hopefully.
We'll see. We'll see. We hoped you enjoyed the conversation, and please don't forget to give your dog a biscuit from us. Until next time.